Welcome to the Empowered Birth series, where I go deep into everything that you need to know to plan and get your true natural birth. And today we're going to do something a little different than typical Empowered Birth masterclasses. So, in the last video, I told you about what you need to be looking for when choosing a natural birth book or something that's going to help you in planning and getting your true natural birth or your empowered birth. And this time, I'm going to go into the 15 books that I typically recommend to all of my clients. And I have way more than 15. In fact, you might notice that this time I've changed the background. I've taken a lot of my books off of my shelf, but I have so many. I have way more than 15 books, and a lot of them are also on my Kindle. But for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to show you some of the 15 books that I have in my collection. If you are a mom who has been asking in the mom groups what books to read for your true natural birth, and everybody just keeps telling you about Ina May's Guide to Childbirth, well, guess what? There are so many more books out there that will help you. And I am going to give you the list. Now, these are not in any specific order. I don't have a ranking for them. So just take what resonates, leave the rest. I'm not saying that any one book is better than the other. And as I said, there's way more than 15. I will probably end up doing another video in the future on this. But for now, let's dive in. So number one on our list is, of course, my favorite book of all time when it comes to induction. In fact, this is the book I recommend to all of my clients when they're planning induction. This is the book I recommend in the mom groups when it comes to trying to decide whether induction is right for them, making decisions around inductions. It also goes into the risks and benefits and alternatives when it comes to induction. There's a section on complications. There's a section on variations. There's even a section on what physiological birth looks like. In fact, this, as I said, is one of my favorite books. It's one I recommend to all my clients. And that is Why Induction Matters by Rachel Reed. Now, you can pick this book up on Amazon. It is available on Kindle as well. And, like the way that she has this laid out, there's a lot of the numbers. So typically what happens is that when you're going to your doctor or your OB, your midwife even, if they're a midwife, they'll tell you that the risk doubles or increases for certain complications, and that's why they're recommending induction, but they don't give you the actual numbers. And Rachel Reed gives you the numbers inside of Why Induction Matters. So definitely go and get a copy for yourself, because this is just the most valuable resource that I've ever found on the topic of induction and making decisions around induction. The other thing I really like about this book is that she doesn't just go by the typical evidence and research. She talks about the limitations of research and evidence, which I also appreciate. And she goes into anecdotal stories of women who actually made decisions to induce or not induce based on the complications or variations of their pregnancy. So it's a very well-rounded book. And as I said, if you're looking to avoid an induction, if you're looking to even make decisions around a positive induction, this is the book that I would highly recommend. Now, maybe you're not looking at induction. You're looking more on the idea of having less pain in childbirth, in which case, this is the book that I actually read in my pregnancy with my daughter when I was planning my home birth, to try to understand how to work with my body and get through the pain part of childbirth. And this is a really empowering book. It is beautiful. It is spiritual. It is written by Guidita Tornetta. And you can get this off of Amazon as well. Now, the one I got, I kind of went and I got a used copy, but I found this in the local library when I was pregnant with my daughter. And it goes into even how birth can be affected by the different chakra systems. So if you are a little bit woo-woo, you'll probably really appreciate this book. But even if you're not on the spiritual path, if you're not typically into spirituality, I found this book to be incredibly valuable, even when I wasn't woo-woo. Now, you've heard probably a lot of scary stories about breech, and typically this is when you get pushed into a C-section. But did you know that someone actually wrote a book on empowered stories of babies born feet first? My dear friend Haley Pierce actually did this, and she has a Facebook group as well that I am a member of, and I go in and I'm basically the birth advocate. And this is a collection of stories that she gathered to empower you to feel more comfortable with the idea of a breech baby. Because, you don't actually have to plan that C-section. You don't even have to do an ECV, an external cephalic version, if you don't want to. You can just let your body birth. And there's so many resources on breech birth that people don't really tap into. Just because the medical system has stopped supporting it does not mean that it's impossible. So this book will probably be a really good, valuable resource in terms of getting your mindset around the idea of if you have a breech baby, you can still birth. Not only that, but it's also going to give you a little bit of anecdotal education that then allows you to see what's really possible. One thing that I really love about this book, though, is that she also has affirmations in helping you turn your baby and be more confident in birthing a breech baby if you so choose. So she has affirmations such as, my baby knows how to be born. I trust myself. I trust my baby. I grew this baby. I can birth this baby. I do not need validation from others. My baby, my body, my birth. I get to meet my baby soon. There is nothing wrong with being afraid. Today is the best day ever. Like she has so many. And she also goes into postpartum. She has her empowering birth stories. Like this is just an amazing book. And she's got some beautiful pictures in it as well. So again, Breech by Haley Pierce. That's the best one that I've seen for breech. Now, for home birth, particularly even unassisted home birth, hands-off home birth, this is the guidebook that I use when I'm helping my clients. When I'm sitting there and they have a question or a concern, or we're even in the middle of the labor process, this is the one that I consult by Heather Baker. She's a traditional midwife. She also has some very interesting stories of home birth. In fact, she even had placenta previa and still gave birth at home. Yes, it's possible. No, I don't recommend that you do that. Not because I don't think you can. It's just that I don't give medical advice. I don't give recommendations. What I can tell you is that if you want to go that route, nothing's stopping you except you and your own limitations. And if you really feel confident, I mean, she did it. So you can kind of pull from the guidebook. One thing I really love about this book is that there's a lot of black and white pictures that depict things that you need to know when it comes to natural birth. There's some beautiful birth pictures. There's sections on transition. There is also sections on how to push. There's an actual picture of a baby crowning. It's beautiful how many birth pictures are in this book. So this is one of my favorites, as I said, for home birth and for physiological birth. So again, you go and get Home Birth on Your Own Terms by Heather Baker. A lot of my clients, I end up getting them this book as part of the package for the coaching. And they say it's an invaluable resource that also allows them to feel really confident about birthing naturally, which is what you want. But maybe you're not having a home birth. Maybe you're planning a hospital birth, in which case, Natural Hospital Birth by Cynthia Gabriel is the go-to for a hospital birth if you're looking for a true natural birth experience. Because you know what? Cynthia was a doula who also studied births in Russia. And in Russia, Every woman believes that she can birth her baby naturally. Very few get the epidural. In contrast to what's in North America and even in parts of the UK, in Russia, it's just inevitable. Birth happens. So Cynthia draws on that knowledge to really tell you about the physiological process of birth and what to expect. That's in the second half of the book. The first half is all about planning the right environment. In fact, she even goes into birth plans, which I really appreciate, and partner support. So again, Natural Hospital Birth by Cynthia Gabriel. Now, you need to have positivity when it comes to your birth, no matter what form it takes. And this is where the Positive Birth book by Millie Hill comes in, because this one goes into the different labor stages, including that really frustrating stage where you aren't sure if you're in labor yet. There's like nothing's happening or something's happening, but I'm not sure. And it goes start, stop, and start, stop, and start. She addresses that in this book. There's also, this is where the visual birth plan came in. In fact, Millie Hill actually creates a visual birth plan. And there's examples inside of this book. There's also a lot of questions that get answered. There's lots of fears and concerns that she addresses. I mean, this is one of my favorite books as well for birth positivity. And she really put a labor of love into this book. And if I'm going to be recommending the top 15 books, like this one is always on the list. In fact, this is, if you're really looking for a book on the right mindset, to be able to have that education and mindset and be like, I can do this. I don't need to be afraid. Again, the Positive Birth book is a go-to. Now, I did mention that there's books besides Ina May's, but you know, Ina May's Guide to Childbirth is just the classic. And if you don't have a copy in your collection, then I highly recommend that you get one, because in addition to telling you about physiological birth in the second half of the book and telling you about the limitations of medical interventions, I just get Ina May's Guide to Childbirth just for the positive birth stories in it. So the thing I really love about the positive birth stories is there's also pictures. She includes pictures. You get a realistic idea of babies born face first, and obviously I'm not going to show it. But if you check out the actual story titled It's a Nose, that happened December 22nd, 1982, there is actually a picture of a baby born like face presentation. So you don't need to be afraid of sunny side up. You don't need to be afraid to birth your baby in a position that maybe isn't technically what the medical system says is proper. If your baby's got a forehead presentation, babies can still be born. And Ina May really goes into a lot of the details. She also talks a lot about the mind-body connection, which I really appreciate. And you know, this is just a classic. This is just a classic. If you want the positive birth stories, like you really want to start with Ina May, she is the one that basically brought natural birth to the collective consciousness to be like, this is actually possible. And then following in Ina May's footsteps is Rachel Reed, Reclaiming Childbirth as a Rite of Passage. Personally, I don't think this book could have existed if not for the groundwork that Ina May really laid down with what she was teaching. Because now we have a deeper dive into physiological birth from what Ina May started. We also have some positive anecdotal stories. There's also a thread in this book. So the way that Rachel Reed really writes this book, she talks about the red thread, and she talks about trauma that was ingrained into our society, and she talks about how this affected the medical system. She also talks about the limitations of midwives. She talks about where we really need to reclaim our power. And she talks about it in the sense of rites of passage. The way that she even frames her chapters is all about rites of passage, including preparation, separation, liminality, and emergence. So she goes deep into these chapters. And, you know, this is the book that I just highly recommend if you are looking for a guidebook on true natural birth. In fact, a lot of the things that I teach come from what I learned from Rachel Reed. Now, maybe you're looking for a book that lays out the pros and cons of different interventions. As I said, not every single book is going to give you everything that you need. So, if you're looking for a book that's going to give you the pros and cons, then the best one I can suggest is The Thinking Woman's Guide to a Better Birth by Hensi Goer. In fact, if you're really looking into also understanding how to handle labor pain, specifically if you're looking to use pharmacological methods, there's a deep dive on all of the different pros and cons, including with the epidural. So she goes even deeper than she did in here. There's just one chapter on the epidural in this book, whereas this book goes much, much deeper into that chapter. So with these two books combined, and you really understand, hey, I'm going to think about the pros and cons and understand the numbers a little bit better than what my doctor's saying. And, you know, sometimes OBs just don't have the time to explain all the risks and benefits, or they might be a category 5. You won't know that until you pull the mask off, which is a good segue to tell you about the Empowered Birth Toolkit and the Birth Advocacy Report, which helps you identify category 5 care providers who are not going to give you all of the information because they really just want you to do what they tell you. And they will use every single scare tactic, coercion, medical gaslighting, threats, like anything that they can do to get you to agree to the induction, agree to the C-section, agree to the episiotomy, and sometimes they'll even do it without permission. So it's really important that you are able to figure out if you've got a category 5 or if it's someone that you can work with within categories 1 through 4, where you could present them information, you could present them articles, you could tell them about the book that you're reading, invite them to read it with you or read a passage from it to them, and then that can also shift their perspective to allow you to collaborate easier, and they'll support your true natural birth. So if you want that, all you have to do is go to empoweringmomsbirth.com/toolkit, and that will get you in. You'll also get a deep dive masterclass, which will tell you the 9 secrets of empowered birth. Because again, I'm not holding anything back here. I'm committed to you having an empowered birth, whether you work with me directly or not, whether you get any of my courses or not, whether you even buy my book, or like you can just get the free path. You can just keep following these videos. You can get the Empowered Birth Toolkit. You can subscribe to the newsletter. And then all I ask is that you pay it forward, because I'm committed to every mom having an empowered birth. Because when you have an empowered birth, you're an empowered mom for life, and nobody can take your power away from you again. And that leads to another book by Millie Hill that I absolutely love, which is called Give Birth Like a Feminist. In fact, it says right there, your body, your baby, your choice. So this book goes deeper into how we can shift the system. And in fact, this book actually inspired Your Empowered Birth, because I recognized that there were some gaps here. But she goes into the history, she goes into what's going on in the medical system, she goes into how to basically stand up for yourself and advocate. I mean, this is just an absolute powerful book. So if you haven't watched the previous video from this one, where I talk about what you want to know when it comes to seeing whether a book is going to work for you, I mentioned about looking through the table of contents. And as a demonstration, I'm going to do this right now with Give Birth Like a Feminist. So what's in this book is this, like chapter 1, Am I Allowed? Birth Room Power Imbalances. Birth, the Land Feminism Forgot. When Women's Bodies Became Men's Business, A History of Birth. And of course, Rachel Reed goes into this even deeper inside her book, Reclaiming Childbirth as a Rite of Passage, but Millie really touches on it here as well. Chapter 4 is Loose Women. Chapter 5 is Women's Bodies Unfit for Purpose. Chapter 6, Birth Culture. Fish Can't See Water. And Chapter 7, Birth Rights Are Women's Rights, Are Human Rights. And, the thing is that this is one of my favorite books. This is a book that Jenny and I have also discussed in the past. And if you really want to understand our birth culture, this is the book I would recommend for our birth culture. Whereas Rachel Reed's book, Reclaiming Childbirth as a Rite of Passage, helps you understand the medical system birth culture. This one helps you understand society. So now we're also going to get into breastfeeding. Because, if you're having a natural birth, you probably want to breastfeed too, right? But there are mistakes there. And no pregnancy and birth education is complete without a really good guide to breastfeeding. And that is Dr. Jack Newman's Guide to Breastfeeding. Yes, an actual doctor wrote a book on breastfeeding, a man at that, and it's amazing. The way he goes into the reasons why a lot of breastfeeding advice out there actually screws you over and what you really need to know about breastfeeding and how to be successful at it, it's just phenomenal. And there's pictures inside as well, so you're able to still get an idea of what you really need to know. As I said, this one is my all-time favorite guide for helping you understand what you really need to know about breastfeeding. It is very thick. It is a guide. And at the same time, it's powerful. It's absolutely powerful. I first got it on Kindle a few years back and I was reading through it and my eyes were just opened to why so many moms struggle with breastfeeding and what can be done about it. So again, if you're looking for a breastfeeding book, and you only have enough for one book or you only want to get one book, this is the one I would recommend. Okay, so we are getting close to the end, but I still have some more books to show you. And sometimes you're looking for a book on how to get your partner to support you, right? In which case, you're going to want to check out The Birth Partner by Penny Simkin. This is an older version of it, so there is a new edition available. I have it on Kindle. It really didn't make sense for me to get another version of the same book at the same time, especially since I'm limited for space at the moment. But The Birth Partner by Penny Simkin really goes into all of the different things that your partner needs to be able to support you with, including early labor, what to do during active labor, how to help you during transition, how to help you during the pushing phase, and even if something is going wrong, how to better support you in that. Now, again, there's always limitations to a book. So it doesn't go into the pros and cons, and it doesn't go into why you want to be advocating for yourself against a medical intervention. So it's not great there. However, if you want to know that, all you have to do is go and keep following this channel because I'm going to tell you all of the secrets to birth advocacy. Make sure that you stay out of the natural birth traps. Make sure that you're supplementing your education. Make sure that you're communicating to your partner your needs. Go back and watch one of my other videos that will tell you how to get your partner on board with your birth plan, because this book in itself is great. And at the same time, you do need some more additional education to really get your empowered birth. And, another thing that a lot of people don't know, and you can kind of see the title, so it's kind of hinting at it already, but birth can be orgasmic. It doesn't have to be painful. And, this is where my education first really came into play, is when I heard that birth could be orgasmic. And I questioned that. I didn't think it was possible. But now I have a different take because I really believe that the power of our bodies is just transformational. And what you experience in an empowered birth, yes, orgasmic birth is possible. So if you want to know how to do that, then go check out Orgasmic Birth by Elizabeth Davies and Deborah Pascali Bonaro, because this is the guidebook to show you how to move from pain to pleasure. If you really think about it, though, our bodies are designed to birth, and it's the same organs that are involved in orgasm. So why wouldn't it make sense that when you let go of resistance and you move through those waves, suddenly you get pleasure? I mean, there's so many facets to this. And again, if you want to know what's in it, the first part is how to have an orgasmic birth. The second part is a trimester by trimester guide. And part 3 is the stories. Now, maybe you want something even deeper into spirituality. You really want to experience the facets of your birth and what is truly possible. In which case, another book that I read during my pregnancy with my second baby was Birth from Within, which not only is it a guide for a positive birth experience, but you can get a little creative with it. There's artwork ideas, there's exercises you can do. This book is a roadmap to get you to have the most positive pregnancy and birth experience imaginable, and also to work through past trauma so that you don't carry it over. There's just so much in this book. I can't really get into it, but this is another staple that a lot of moms in the natural birth community do talk about. And finally, another one in my collection that I absolutely love, and I actually got to meet the author on Zoom. It was amazing. It was like a little fangirl moment for me, is Gentle Birth Choices by Barbara Harper. There's a whole guide in here on water birth. And not only that, it also clears up a lot of the misconceptions about that birth has to be sterile and birth needs to be hands-on and all of that typical stuff. But I really love this book for the affirmations, the visualizations in here, and the guide on water birth. So Gentle Birth Choices also comes with a DVD. So you can actually watch interviews that Barbara Harper is doing with others in the industry to really showcase what's possible with gentle birth. So that's the 15 books that I would recommend if this was your first time planning a true natural birth, or if you're just looking for some really good reading material that's positive, that's going to put you on the right path, that's going to keep you out of the natural birth traps. But you know, there's also that bonus one, Your Empowered Birth, because you know, when I wrote this book, it was really the culmination of all of my education that I'd already picked up from being a doula, from being in the birth community, from reading from other powerful writers. And I'd always wanted to write a book. I just didn't know that I'd end up writing a birth book. But after the birth of my first baby, I had a fire lit in me. And after the birth of my second, that fire just grew to an inferno that would not die out. And I just knew that one day I would have a how-to manual to help you to really navigate the medical system to get that hands-off birth. Because in our birth culture, there's this idea that you have to just defer to the experts. And I am committed to you having an empowered birth and doing things your way that works for you. And if you want to have a hospital birth, you need to know what you're looking at when you go into the system. If you're having a home birth, you again need to have the mindset and the tools available to really do it justice. Because it's not just about the destination, it's about the journey. And Your Empowered Birth is all about helping you map out that journey. Whether you're a first-time mom planning your first true natural birth and you want to avoid a C-section and an induction and never experience birth trauma, or you've already been screwed over once or twice or more times than that, you're working through trauma, you're needing to heal, this is the book that I highly recommend, because even though it's technically my book, I also put it out on YouTube. You just go to my playlist, listen to the book, you can sample it, And if you do feel called to support the Empowered Birth movement, you can purchase a copy off of Amazon. So again, those are my recommendations. I will probably have more in the future. This is just one deep dive video. You've got 15 books now that you can go through, and we're just going to recap them really, really quickly. Okay, so we've got Your Empowered Birth. We've got Gentle Birth Choices by Barbara Harper. We've got Birthing from Within from Pam England and Rob Horowitz. We have Orgasmic Birth by Elizabeth Davis and Deborah Pascali Bonaro. We have The Birth Partner by Penny Simkin. Dr. Jack Newman's Guide to Breastfeeding. Labor Pain and or The Thinking Woman's Guide to a Better Birth by Hensi Goer. It's a 2-for. Give Birth Like a Feminist by Millie Hill. Reclaiming Childbirth is a Rite of Passage by Rachel Reed. Ina May's Guide to Childbirth by Ina May Gaskin. The Positive Birth Book by Millie Hill. Natural Hospital Birth by Cynthia Gabriel. Home Birth on Your Own Terms by Heather Baker. Breach by Haley Pierce. Painless Childbirth by Guidita Tornetta. And Why Induction Matters by Rachel Reed. So again, you can go and pick up those books off of Amazon. They are amazing. They will help you on your empowered birth journey. There are so many more that I could not get into today. But if you ever have any questions, you can always reach out to me, hello@empoweringmomsbirth.com, and either myself or one of my team members will get back to you within 1 to 2 business days. The other thing I'm going to say is that if you yourself have some titles that you would recommend, you can always put them in the comments, because I am constantly looking to add to my library. And maybe I already have that title, or maybe I don't. But, you know, when you're looking for the right education, sometimes those books are hidden, because so many people will recommend the most popular titles and they don't really know if that book is going to help you have a true natural birth. So again, thank you so much for watching. If you found value in this video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Make sure you go and get the Empowered Birth Toolkit if you are looking to go deeper with your empowered birth, because this is going to help you have the most empowered birth journey. Even if you can't work with me at the deeper levels, even if you can't get one of my courses or it's not right for you, you will still get an empowered birth, because I am committed to you having an empowered birth and helping you become an empowered mom for life, so that no one can take your power away from you again. All right, so thank you so much for watching. Happy empowered birth journey, and I will see you soon. Bye now.